Hey, welcome back, everybody. Another flawless transition from the Doc and Lefty crew here at the studio. We're going to move away from political correctness / LGBTQ right into the teeth of the 2016 election, specifically Rand Paul and what he's got himself up to, coming hot off his filibuster of the renewal of the Patriot Act, which he was able to kind of delay. We run smack dab into the USA Freedom Act, which is essentially the same as the Patriot Act, getting renewed until 2019. So, wah, wah. Doc, I know you wanted to talk more specifically about his libertarian chances and whatnot, but just quick, give me a handicap for what does that say about Rand Paul's effectiveness as a campaigner here moving into 2016?
Well, let's look at it. Ted Cruz tried to filibuster and he got stomped on and slapped around. I mean, and that's all there is to it. Rand Paul goes and does exactly the same thing, and there's a lot of people cheering for him. I'm one of them. You don't want people collecting, you don't want the NSA collecting data. I mean, we've talked about that before. That's what he's standing up for. So he's standing up for a bipartisan issue, and he was successful in doing this. It just was with the concerted effort of the Republican leadership that crammed this thing back down our throats. That's what happened. I think it spells a lot of hope for people that support Rand Paul that he does have the political juice to at least disrupt what's going on. The USA Freedom Act apparently doesn't allow the NSA to collect phone records.
No, but it still allows the corporations to hang on to them for an extended period of time, and just puts another level of I don't know, Fourth Amendment protection between the government, and which should be there anyway. But they're not rubber stamping this stuff necessarily, but it's still pretty easy to get, is what the critics of the Freedom Act say.
Yeah, and that's exactly the point I was getting to. It's a little bit of a watered down version, more palatable, but that's like saying, well, I'm sorry, you're going to have to eat this you're going to have to eat this poo sandwich. And in order to make that poo sandwich more palatable, we're going to put a little chocolate on top, right? It's still a poo sandwich. It's still not a good bill. And the truth is, when the Patriot Act first came out, and I'd read a lot of it, I thought, this is really a fairly good thing. But the problem is as it's been modified, as it's been abused, as it's been used, it really hasn't turned into what it's supposed to be. And the thing is, there's a lot of people out there that aren't Paulites, for lack of a better term, that really appreciated what he did. The problem is it speaks to his foreign policy, which is the one reason why he's not able to raise a lot of money. Rand Paul is he's not an isolationist. He's let's keep our troops home and make sure that when we go, it is for our own defense, not to settle somebody else's fight. And the people that give money really have a tendency to be hawkish. And he's not raising money with those people, even though almost every libertarian out there agrees with it, and a lot of Democrats agree with it. But he's having trouble raising money, and I believe that's one of the cases.
Well, his dad had a lot of trouble raising money. His dad had a lot of support from the kids. Rand Paul presumably is going to have a lot of support from the kids, but he's not doing well so far. So dumb. It's so dumb. We should be worrying about this. Well, we can't worry about it in January because that's when the Iowa caucuses are now, for crying out loud. Yes. But it's just he's not going to have any juice on the Republican caucuses. It's all tied up with Scott Walker and Marco Rubio, and I think Jeb Bush is doing okay. The Quinnipiac just had one that came out, but Rand Paul is definitely down there with the Santorums and the Huckabees, and
yeah,
which is weird.
Well, I'm gonna tell you, the last election cycle, the Paulites hijacked the Republican leadership in a lot of counties, and in fact, here in Iowa, if we hadn't had Governor Branstad, let's say we elected Uncle Bob. Yep. Right. If Branstad hadn't elected Uncle Bob would be Bob Vanderplaats would be governor. Bob Vanderplaats wouldn't have had the political juice to get these people out of contention. And so it took 2 solid years of consistent political maneuvering, and the fact that the 2 people that ran the Iowa GOP were complete morons, right, and alienated everybody, they would still be in charge running this thing. So
I was wrong. Hold on.
What?
Okay. Scott Walker, right now, from the Quinnipiac poll I just cited,
Yeah.
I got to make sure that everybody knows exactly what's going on here. Walker's at 21%.
Okay.
Scramble for second place is Rand Paul, Marco Rubio, and Ted Cruz at 13. Huckabee, or Cruz has got 12. Huckabee's got 11. Ben Carson's got 7. And Jeb Bush has 5%. No other candidate that's out there has got anything better than that. But so Scott Walker is pounding all these folks by 9-10 points, which kind of is interesting. It's interesting to me because it seems like the Republicans, and especially the more conservative Republicans, they don't want a senator, Doc. They don't want. I don't think you guys want a senator, and so I think that might be where Paul's problem is. Like
that could
structurally, feels like you guys want a governor. You don't want a complete outsider like a Fiorina or a Carson necessarily, but I think you guys might want a governor.
Well, and that's the general feel I get talking to some of the political insiders. Senator Zahn said exactly what you said.
Yeah.
A lot of the other people that are supporting people like Huckabee and people and Walker all say the same thing. We need somebody with executive experience to get in there because let's face it, whether or not you like Obama, there was a giant learning curve he had to go through, particularly in foreign policy. I think that he thought things worked differently than they really do. And he got a lesson that everybody learns, and that is there's only so much room in the presidential office. Well, you can only maneuver so much.
Well, good grief. The last senator that was elected to the White House was John F. Kennedy, I think.
Yeah, that's probably true.
I think that's right because LBJ took over as the vice president. So he was elected as a vice president. And then Gerald Ford never stood for election, but he was in the House anyway. Nixon was a vice president / former governor. Yeah. Ronald Reagan, former governor.
Yep. Carter
was a former governor.
Reagan, governor.
Yep. Bush, vice president. Yep. George W. Bush, governor. Clinton, governor. Yeah, I think that's right. John F. Kennedy was the last senator elected to the presidency before Barack Obama. And I think the country is kind of off that a little bit. But what's fascinating to me is that even though it feels like the Iowa caucuses are shaping up for the governors a little bit more so than the senators at this point, y'all really want to make this a foreign policy thing too. And I don't. And foreign policy is going to loom large in this election. And I don't know that the Republicans know how they feel about foreign policy.
Yeah, well, I would agree with that. We're going to be back right after this break. Thanks everybody for tuning in. When we get back, we're going to be talking about Bernie Sanders, probably get a little bit into foreign policy and what the Democrats and Republicans really should be talking about. Thanks everybody for tuning in. We'll be back right after this break.